Dragon Ball Daima, the newest anime in the Dragon Ball franchise and the final Dragon Ball story to have involvement from its creator, the late Akira Toriyama. Now, whether you loved or hated it, I do feel a conversation needs to be had. Daima came and went without leaving a mark. Half a year later, and it's almost as if it never happened. So what went wrong? Let's take a closer look at Dragon Ball Daima. If you watched my 10th anniversary video for Dragon Ball Super, you'll know that Super was huge here in Japan. Not only were adult fans talking about it, but a whole new generation of fans were crazy about Dragon Ball. Kids with Dragon Ball Super clothes, toys, and games. So why didn't Daima have the same impact on kids? Especially with it being far more geared towards children than Super was. Super aired on Sunday mornings on TV alongside One Piece. Now, for those who don't know, Sunday morning anime in Japan is kind of like Saturday morning cartoons for Americans. Daima, on the other hand, aired Friday nights at 11:50 p.m. To make up for this awful time slot, nearly all streaming services in Japan got Daima after it aired. Not only just Japanese streaming services, but Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix, and even Disney+. However, many younger kids had no idea it even existed. A pro of streaming services is that you can watch almost anything you want. On the other hand, with weekend cartoons, you're forced to watch whatever airs. And I do feel this hurt Daima. With all the possibilities that streaming services offer, many kids probably weren't tuning in, especially for the fact that kids generally don't watch streaming services as much as adults do. Not having it on TV in the mornings made it go completely unnoticed by smaller children. Now, I did speak with elementary to junior high school kids. No, I'm not a creeper. I often work with kids. As Daima was airing, and those who were already Dragon Ball fans did watch it via streaming services. But those who had never seen Dragon Ball before seemed completely unaware of its existence. Now, Daima did get decent advertising. It got TV adverts as well as internet ads. I will say marketing did a good job getting the word out there. However, when it came to merchandising, that's where marketing dropped the ball. The merchandising was really lacking. We got some really knick-knack kind of snacks. I think I've even posted some shorts about them. They're like these little cookie things with stickers. Now you might say, hey, it's better than nothing. Here's the thing. A lot of the stores that sold these Daima snacks, the convenience stores especially, after a few months, I still saw them on sale and places were then just discounting them to practically give them away, showing that the Daima merchandise was not having an effect. Hell, even Dokkan Battle, which is celebrating their 10th anniversary this year, barely had any content for Daima, even when they did their big anniversary celebration. So it just feels like Daima did not get a lot of love in terms of merchandising. Now, when you compare this with Super, there weren't really any big collaborations with food chains either. I think I pointed out that, they had like Mr. Donuts here or any other of these kind of big places, a sushi place. But with Daima, they did nothing. They got no big collaborations with any of the big food chains here. A lot of these times, these collaborations were done for kids, which is surprising as Dragon Ball Super was heavily marketed towards kids and was very successful. Daima just didn't have the same exposure. I mean, a collaboration with McDonald's or another food chain could have really got more kids to become fans. But I just feel no companies were interested. What the fuck? Once again, Hong Kong, not Japan, did a collab between McDonald's and Dragon Ball. Hong Kong tends to get the cooler collabs for some reason. I saw many comments online from Japanese fans disappointed, and here's why. If you look carefully, I know you guys maybe can't read Japanese out there, but obviously, Japanese and Chinese have similar characters as, the kanji in Japanese comes from Chinese. But if you look carefully at the top there is katakana, which is Japanese. There were Japanese people on X who basically in the comments were saying, wait, is this Japan? They were confused because why was the Hong Kong advertisement for McDonald's using Japanese on top of it? So it threw everybody off thinking that McDonald's in Japan was getting, Dragon Ball. However, it did not. Surprisingly enough, we only saw some Daima merchandise as the show was ending. GU is a famous clothing chain in Japan. GU did an entire line of Dragon Ball Daima related clothing. However, the clothing released 1 week before the series finale. Just at that point was way too late, probably. Also, Don Quixote, it's a big kind of store here in Japan. On February 8th, a few weeks before the series finale, they did a whole line of some Dragon Ball Daima related goods. But at this point, like I said, it was just too little too late. Unfortunately, we need to discuss that there are certain elements in the show that just didn't work. While Toriyama did play a large part in the story's development, he did not write the series scene by scene, leaving some things to be written by anime writers. Anything outside the original manga is technically not fully Toriyama. Hell, even Dragon Ball Super, the anime, or manga for that matter. So we really can't put all the blame on him for the flaws in Daima. So Goku and Vegeta both have new transformations. Now, there is an issue with having new transformations be a secret. Let's talk about Vegeta first. Vegeta shows that he can go Super Saiyan 3, and everybody's surprised. Of course, Goku's surprising. How did I not know? And Bulma's basically saying that, he trains really hard, But there's an issue with this. If Vegeta somewhere on Earth trained by himself and managed to unlock Super Saiyan 3, Goku or everybody else would have probably sensed his ki, sensing that he, has a higher ki now and turned Super Saiyan 3. You could say he used the Room of Spirit and Time. However, at this point in the story, the Room of Spirit and Time had not been rebuilt yet, like in Dragon Ball Super, where they had the new revamped version where you could use it endlessly. There was no limit anymore. So in that case, Vegeta transforming and learning Super Saiyan 3 somehow doesn't make any sense. Super Saiyan 4, on the other hand, they at least handle with Goku never transformed before Neva gave him the key that how to unlock it. Goku then says he was trying to achieve it and he was just missing something. Neva allowed him to finally unlock it. Aside from the canon stuff people, can point out, there is a chance that after they leave Daima, Goku never was able to do it again. We don't know. Now, probably the biggest flaw that hurt the series was the timing of the story. What I mean is, this was no progression of the story past where Super left off. Instead, making it a prequel to Super. It was a turnoff for many fans, including Japanese fans. Therefore, there were fans that haven't even watched Daima feeling it wasn't even worth the watch. I do feel if the story had moved things beyond Super, it would have attracted more viewers, especially because Super did have a lot of fans here. A strong point of the series is the setting of Daima, as well as the new characters. But sadly, it felt like we just didn't have enough time with either of them. Now, do understand there's a lot of subjectivity when talking about the story and writing, but I'm just pointing out the main complaints the series has. Various interviews have been released with people who worked behind the scenes. Now, sadly, they all say the same thing. Toriyama had ideas, they followed through and made the series. Toriyama felt Daima was canon and connected to everything, but since he's no longer here, they don't know how he planned to connect everything. This is pretty much what everybody said. This is probably the biggest issue. The plot holes in the series, now I use plot holes with quotation marks, the plot holes in the series are mainly due to the fact that the creator himself is no longer here to fill in those blanks, leaving this task to future writers of the series. A very tall order, as they need to not only satisfy the fans' needs, but they need to make all these things make sense. Dragon Ball Daima sadly feels like it will be a forgotten series. And the saddest part about this is that this is the last Dragon Ball story to have involvement from Toriyama. But as I pointed out, the main issue with the series is the unfortunate departure of the man behind it all. The only one who truly knew where things were supposed to go from here. This is perhaps what will tarnish the legacy of Dragon Ball Daima the most. An unfinished idea with poor distribution and poor marketing. So now that it's been half a year, how do you guys feel about Dragon Ball Daima? Whether you loved it or hated it, I want to know. Don't worry, there's no wrong answer here. I understand both sides, however you feel. What do you think were some issues with the series? Why didn't it have the success that Dragon Ball Super had? What was the missing element? I want to know your theories down below. Also, how do you feel future writers will handle these plot holes in the series? Do you think that they will find a way to make it all make sense without any notes from Toriyama? As always, like, subscribe, and share. Turn notifications on so you never miss a video, and see you soon.